So our next speaker, he's got to use every second that he's got on this clock. Trust me, he's got a lot to go over. Sorry? Oh, they're testing. He's got to use every second that he's got, and it's worth it, I'm telling you. I'm wearing the shirt. How many of you saw the little Chicago skyline thing that we did? This is interesting. And some of you, my name is Rick Hummer. I'm from northern Indiana. I grew up 20 minutes from this launch site where Rob and I went. Long story short, the reason why Rob and I went to this was because I could see Chicago growing up all the way across the lake. I actually got kicked out of class when I was 12 years old because I told my teacher when we were doing these tests that I could see Chicago. They said, no way, go to the office, quit being, and I didn't shut up, trust me, I just kept going. And I was called a liar basically, and I basically said, well, you can call my dad a liar. He was with me, and that's when I went to the office. The principal takes me back to class because the principal had seen the same thing that I had seen. You can see Chicago across Lake Michigan. Okay? I told Rob that. Rob is the one that got me involved in this. I told Rob that. I said, you can see, he was, no way. Yes. That'd be cool. We got to do this test. It took us a year, but the night that we started discussing this is not a joke. This is how I believe that the Most High works. He's got a sense of humor. The night that we discussed this pretty in depth, that night I called Rob and said, you're not going to believe this, dude. Our local weather guy just tried to say that Chicago is a mirage.
Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline.
This is from my market, my TV market. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, you can't write this stuff. This happened. So a year later, this guy comes up to Indiana, we do this thing, and without further ado, a guy that I love dearly, and I'm just so thankful that I know him and all these speakers and all you guys that I've gotten to meet, but Rob Skiba is one of us, and I just love you, brother. Come on up and do your thing. And guess what? Guess what? It's not a mirage. Not a mirage. Not a mirage.
It's not a mirage. All right, we can hit go on the PowerPoint and the timer. I'm going to do my best here. And we have PowerPoint. All right, very good. All right, welcome to the mother that gave birth to the motherlode of all conspiracies. And probably the deepest rabbit hole I've ever been in, for sure. Just want to say thank you guys for your love, for your prayers, for your support. It has meant more to me than I could possibly ever express in words. So just please accept those two simple words right there, thank you. Because I have 96 slides, I have 90 minutes, and 36 of those are video. So I hope you're ready to listen fast, because I'm ready to speak fast and turn on the fire hose. All right, I've titled my presentation, April 15th, 2015, The Day Mark Sargent Ruined My Life. No, not really. The actual title of the presentation is Testing the Globe, Why Do You Believe What You Believe? My goal with this presentation is not so much to try to convince anybody that the earth is flat, although most of you are probably already convinced of that. My goal is to get you to question why you believe what you believe. Because that's basically the question that Mark Sargent asked me on April 15th, 2015. Thank you. On April 13th, I listened to an interview that he did with Canary Cry Radio, Basil and Gons, a couple of guys that I enjoy listening to. I had to go do my taxes. And it's an hour and a half drive to my accountant's office. And so I thought, I'm going to listen to something. It's an hour and a half drive. So I looked for some podcasts to download. I downloaded their podcast, Mark Sargent, Flat Earth. I'm like, this must be like a April Fool's joke or something. So I listened to it. And in the beginning of it, I'm rolling my eyes. This is crazy. This is stupid. But the time I got to my accountant's office, I'm going, shoot, that guy kind of made a little bit of sense. Could barely focus the whole time I was there. So I got to listen to that again. Listen to it again on the way home. And of course, he referenced his Flat Earth clues, so I immediately started watching the videos. I watched the Flat Earth clues, and that was April 13th and April 14th. April 15th, I called him up because he's got his phone number there, right? Everybody's sharing the same story. And I had him on my radio show April 15th. And if you've heard that show, you know that I was very much in favor of the Neil Adams expanding globe theory. I was hardcore on that. And I don't remember if it was on the air or if it was at some point after we got off the air. But Mark said, yeah, I get it. Okay, you believe the Earth's a globe. Cool. Prove it. But do so without using NASA, the government, or the military. How many of you think the government's 100% trustworthy? Anybody? Insert crickets. How many of you know the military answers to the government? And that goes for every nation, not just the United States. So we already acknowledge that the government is not trustworthy. It's not a trustworthy source. What about NASA? Think they're a trustworthy source? And one of the things Mark said is, one thing about Flat Club is you don't talk about Flat Club. Well, as soon as you first hear about this, that's all you can talk about, right? So I start looking into all these things, and when I look at that date, April 15th, 2015, I remember the days when I was a NASA fanboy, and I thought that Star Trek painted a reasonable picture of the future. And the phrase, where no man has gone before, had a different meaning than it does for me now. Back in the sweet bliss of ignorance, before I knew the things that I know today, and before, several hundred trolls decided to wake up every morning and assault every single thing I say on social media. Those were the good old days before them. Well, those days are gone. So we're going to talk about my journey here today. A quest for truth. Who am I, first of all? All right, well, first and foremost, I am a believer in and a follower of Yeshua, also known as Jesus Christ. Thank you. He defines my being, and I try to do everything I can to please him. I am a filmmaker by trade and a researcher by hobby. Although in the last few years they've kind of switched. I've done a whole lot more of the researching type of stuff than I have the filmmaking, but that's about to change. I'm about to switch gears and go back in the filmmaking side of things again. And at least according to some, I'm a evil shill by accusation, apparently on the payroll of the Illuminati. So if somebody can help me, though, I'm really trying to get a hold of the accounting department because for some reason the checks haven't been coming. So if somebody can help me out with that, that would be awesome. All right, some of the things that influenced my life. Well, first of all, my parents. I have amazing parents. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary. How cool is that in today's society? I was raised in a Christian home. My dad was a Baptist minister when I was a kid. They taught me the Bible and brought me to church. That's why I came to know Yeshua at age 7. And like I said, I've been trying to serve him ever since. Also, when I was 7 years old, I saw this movie. Star Wars, right? When that ship came overhead, whew, man, I was in. Totally. And within a year, I made a public declaration. I said, I will either be an astronaut, a movie star, or a filmmaker by the time I'm 30 or I'd be dead. It wasn't that I had a death wish. It's just that I'm a very passionate person, and I go after the things that I believe. And my thinking process was at age 8, when you think about 30, that's like, ooh, that's a long way. It would have to be because I was dead if I didn't achieve those things. So I set my sights, first of all, to be an astronaut. And Jim Irwin came to my little Baptist church in Chicopee, Massachusetts when I was a kid, and signed this picture of him allegedly on the moon. It said, Rob Skiba, reach for your dreams, aim high. And I did. I went into the Army, flew helicopters. My goal was to transition to flying jets. Once I had that down, I put my application in for NASA and all that. I was all about that. In fact, until very recently, that photograph was always right above my computer monitor, right in front of my face, just until like about a year ago. All right, so that was something that I was very passionate about. So let me just say that I went into this whole thing kicking and screaming. I didn't want to look at this, like many others probably. Now, let me just ask you something. How many of you would claim this book as your source for truth? Okay. I definitely do. I believe it is the divinely inspired Word of God, inspired by the Holy Spirit, written by men. Again, try to live my life by that. You notice that I didn't ask how many of you put your faith and trust in church or in religion, right? Now, if you look at that sign, You could kind of take it two different ways, couldn't you? Scripture says that pure and undefiled religion is that we take care of widows and orphans, right? And Yeshua had two commandments: love God and love your neighbors, right? And so you could look at that and say, that's right, the church, they love people who are hurting. Or, yeah, that's right, they love hurting people. That's what churches are all about. Absolutely. And sadly, it has been my experience that Christians have the only military that assembles its firing squad in a circle. And if you followed me at all on social media, you know that I'm usually somewhere in the middle of that. So if you have issues with religion, I'm with you. Okay? I am not about religion, I'm about a relationship. And that book shows you how to have that relationship. I've spent my entire life in that book. And when it comes to this subject, that's what got me in trouble. Because like it or not, I know there's some here that's going to disagree with me, that book is a flat earth book from Genesis to Revelation. It just is. And we'll cover that shortly. So, I've got several parts of this presentation. Part one, taking a trip down the rabbit hole. What does that look like? Well, prior to coming into this research, I had already written several books, a few of which became Amazon bestsellers, and I had already been on the speaking circuit, traveling the world, talking about various subjects, from government conspiracies to the Nephilim, giants, and things of that nature. And I actually really enjoyed being in the in crowd at one point, until I was promptly kicked out of it. And Robbie Davidson said something to me a while back, and I think he's absolutely right. He said, when it comes to this particular subject, you really have to kind of feel your audience out first and see, okay, where are they with 9/11? Okay, where are they with the moon landing? Especially those two. Because if they understand, if they've taken the red pill, so to speak, on especially those two subjects, then it's pretty easy to continue the discussion. If they believe the official story of either one of those, forget it. Just walk away. Talk about sports, whatever. So for those of you who maybe don't yet know what I'm talking about, I've prepared a little 6-minute clip, a video that's taken from a longer video that I have online from my Babylon Rising research regarding 9/11. So we'll use this as a primer.
The core of each tower was a rectangular pillar, 87 by 133 feet. Comprised of 47 steel box columns ranging from 36 by 16 to 52 by 22 inches.
The story we were told. This rock-like steel grid gave way because fire warped the trusses, causing the bolts to fail. As the trusses sagged and fell, the floors dropped with them. In its 2002 documentary, Why the Towers Fell, PBS creates a video model.
Once the trusses fail, the floors they were holding cascade down with a force too great to be withstood. The result is what's called a progressive collapse, as each floor pancakes down onto the one below.
What remains standing? The tall, indestructible core. Why does PBS fail to explain the complete disappearance of the Twin Towers cores?
By that evening, eyewitnesses and experts alike were rushing to defend the official narrative of events, claiming that raging jet fuel fires melted the steel inside the Twin Towers.
I saw this plane come out of nowhere and just ream right into the side of the Twin Tower, exploding through the other side. And then I witnessed both towers collapse, one first and then the second, mostly due to structural failure because the fire was just too intense.
Marlene Davis is the Dean of Architecture at the University of Tennessee. She calls the 110-story tall twin tower tube structures. That means there are no internal columns holding it up.
When we saw this yesterday, people said, oh my goodness, there was a bomb on there. There must have been a bomb that collapsed. Must have been a bomb below. Right, that finished the job. Well, it turns out we heard from experts who said that, the fire on those floors, probably 1,500 degrees. Steel can only withstand so much because the steel structure that holds the building up was on the outside, and essentially the building started to melt and it gave way and it toppled.
CBS's Jim Stewart in Washington has been tracking events all day and has the latest. Jim?
We're told rescue workers have recovered a passport and the debris. It belonged to one of the dead hijackers.
Another development on Saturday, New York officials revealed at a news conference here in the city that a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
Well, Dan, not far from here, a passerby found the passport of one of the hijackers. Evidence this disaster scene is also a crime scene.
These passports are so magical and so wonderful that, like Gollum's ring, they call to you. They call to who they want to find them, but not any normal mortal. No. The ring calls out only to FBI agents.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York, while in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the budget analyst office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. You will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever.
How ridiculous is the official story? After you finally wake up and realize, guess what? Your government can and does lie to you. It took me a while. I believed the official story just like everybody else. I didn't wake up till 2006. And if this is brand new for you, well, there's a little teaser. Time for you to get busy. It's 2017, folks. Okay? Time to wake up, especially on that deal. All right, so then fine. What about the Apollo moon landings? You know, I was a big NASA fanboy. We could spend a whole weekend just talking about this alone. We don't have time to, so I'll just recommend you check out these videos right here. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon and Astronauts Gone Wild by Bart Sabrell. You need to check those videos out if you have not seen them. Of course, if you watch them on YouTube, lots of other videos will populate and you'll be, binge watching for weeks. And then this other video that recently came out, it's a movie that came out, and it's made to look like a documentary that was filmed back in the 60s. And it attempts to explain why would they do this? Why would they fake this in the first place? It's very well done, and the people who did that movie, I think it came out last year, clearly did their research. They had a little bit of everything sprinkled into that movie. But one of the things that really stood out to me that made the most sense, because when people hear what we're talking about here at this conference, they'll say, this is too big a conspiracy. There's no way. It can't possibly happen. How can all these people lie to us? And, no. Okay, first of all, compartmentalization solves most of that. Okay, but there was a scene in the movie, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact dialogue, but they were like, well, how are we going to convince everybody? How are we going to convince everybody that what we're trying to do is real? And one of the characters says, we don't need to convince everybody. We only need to convince Walter Cronkite. Because if he believes it, then all of his passion and zeal, and he's the trusted news source, attention media, everybody else is going to believe because he believes. You should watch the movie. Check it out. It's called Operation Avalanche. All right, now thinking about the Apollo moon landings, Apollo 11 in particular, you know what area of the moon Apollo landed on? What part of the moon? Sea of Tranquility. Okay, Sea of Tranquility. Well, no, actually that's Arizona. That's where they blew up the desert of Arizona to make it look like the moon. You can actually go on Google Earth and still see that site today. In fact, I went there recently, checked it out for myself. You might have seen the video, Rob Skiba Walks on the Moon. A little freeze frame for you. I went there. Interesting when you start seeing pictures like this. Buzz Aldrin standing in front of that mountain range, right? Some say that may be Hawaii and not Arizona. I'm not sure. It looked like the same mountains that I saw in Arizona. Whatever the case may be, got your little astronaut down there walking in front of the same thing. Official NASA photograph. Still looking at other photographs like the Apollo 15 mission, where you've got this background and there's no lunar lander there, and then you have the exact same background, all of a sudden, boom, the lander's there. As far as I know, they didn't have the ability to pick up and move that thing. It landed and that's it. They superimposed the two pictures right on top and the backgrounds match exactly. That's from Apollo 15. The same mission this picture came from, supposedly. Oh, and by the way, Jim Irwin, right? Good Christian guy. I hear, Scripture actually says that Satan appears as an angel of light. Paul also goes on to say that it should be no wonder then that his guys will also appear as ministers of righteousness. Oh, he's a Christian astronaut. So what? Somebody says that? That's like a politician finding Jesus on the campaign trail. I didn't know that Jesus was lost. Oh, yeah, every politician finds Jesus on the campaign trail. Convenient. Okay, we got Christian astronauts. Okay, that's between God and them. I don't know. I don't know if they are or not. But I'll tell you this, when I see a card-carrying Freemason claiming to be a Christian, I've checked out. Nope. Not with you, buddy. Sorry. And if you come back with the Genesis rock that comes back and refutes Genesis, yeah, I'm really going to question you. The Genesis rock, discovered by Jim Irwin and company, supposedly proves the Earth's 4.6 billion years or whatever the garbage is they're peddling. Contradicting the Genesis timeline. Same guy, same mission. Faulty backgrounds. You start messing around with some of this stuff, I don't think that they were counting on Photoshop when they published all these pictures from the 60s and 70s. Because you can bring these pictures in, you can download them from the NASA websites, bring them in Photoshop, and you start seeing, I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, rectangular boxes around the Earth in the background there. Look at this the picture in the lower right here. I'll just adjust the contrast for you. Ooh, what is that? That's interesting. Huh. What about this picture right here? Ooh, that's a famous picture. Let's tweak the contrast and see what happens. Ooh. What's up with that? I did one, the most famous picture of the Earth that you've seen in every textbook was from Apollo, the last Apollo mission, Apollo 17. I'd go to Apollo 17 on the NASA website, I'd download that picture, did this live on a Google Hangout. I was talking with some guy, Josh Peck I think it was. We did it live on the air. I went to the website, NASA's website, went to the Apollo mission, went to that picture, downloaded it, adjusted it in Photoshop. I don't know if you can see it with the resolution there, but there's a rectangular box over the Earth. And this was just a few days before June 16th, 2015. Just a couple days prior is when I did that interview. Right after June 16th, some guys on Facebook said, hey, you want to go back to the website? Went back to the website. The website, probably can't read it there, but where the arrow is, it says that that page was updated with a new picture. And if you download the new picture and adjust the contrast, all of a sudden you see stars and everything. Wow. How many astronauts said, oh, yeah, we didn't see any stars when we were up there? Oh, but the new Photoshop picture, you got stars but no box. Interesting. Why the heck were they in Antarctica prior to the moon landings looking for moon rocks? Look that up. Werner von Braun and company out there down in Antarctica looking for moon rocks. Okay, first of all, at that point we haven't even been to the moon yet. And it's not like you could find a rock, pick it up and go, oh, made on the moon. Cool. Let's put that over here. Made on Mars. Oh, that could go over here. We haven't been there yet. And we're supposedly in the middle of a space race with Russia, right? Oh, the Russians, they're up there and they're big. We gotta beat the Russians. Hey, let's take a vacation down to Antarctica right in the middle of the race. Some of you know about my trip to Amsterdam. I go to Amsterdam, and it turns out they were the first to expose the moon rock as a fraud. Because Apollo 11 astronauts that went on tour, and they were giving various people and royalty and whatnot, moon rocks. Well, a few years back, they decided they wanted to take out an insurance policy on it, so they had it tested. And it turned out to be petrified wood. Interesting. Maybe that's why you have sort of before and after pictures like this, right? Have you guys seen the press conference of these guys when they came back? I'm pretty spazzed as a person as it is. If I had been on the moon, man, I'd still be floating. I'd have been spazzed out of my mind. These guys look like they just found out Santa Claus isn't real, the Easter Bunny is a fraud, Watch the first 3 to 4 minutes of that press conference. Wow. It actually looks to me like probably some really good patriotic guys doing their duty for God and country, so they believe, being forced to tell a lie. That's just my opinion. If this is new to you, I suggest you spend some time on this website right here, aulis.com, A-U-L-I-S. Who am I? You saw my resume up there, right? I mean, I don't have any pictures, showing me in a fancy robe with a square hat and a tassel hanging down. There's no letters after my name. There's no reason for you to listen to me. In fact, I would say don't listen to me. Don't believe a thing I say. Go out and look this stuff up for yourself. But this is PhD level people analyzing the Apollo missions and exposing it as a fraud. So if you want to listen to this crazy guy from Texas, go listen to them. All right, go check that out. Or we could just let NASA speak for themselves, shall we? Let's listen to what they have to say.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
We're also really pushing the boundaries in terms of where we're going forward with exploration. I think humans are naturally driven to do this, and this is really the beginning, I think, of human beings leaving low Earth orbit. I certainly plan on being around to see that.
The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. We only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
Once we travel beyond low Earth orbit, the crew will be exposed to larger amounts of radiation. So we have to design both the crew protection systems and our electronic systems to withstand this radiation.
If there is something that definitely, at least in my opinion, exposes the Apollo program as a fraud, it's the Orion project. The Orion project, after they retired the space shuttle, the next project that's on the board right now is called Project Orion. And they're pretty much telling you that Apollo never happened, especially when they put out videos like this talking about the Van Allen radiation belts.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
What?
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
One more time.
An area of dangerous radiation.
Oh. What's wrong with that radiation?
Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back.
That doesn't sound good.
Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
What? We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space? I thought this problem was solved over 40 years ago when he sent a bunch of people in jumpsuits and tin cans through it there and back a half dozen times. Oh, but I forgot. The Apollo guys, they were clueless regarding the radiation belt. That it didn't affect them.
I don't know the distance to the Van Allen radiation belt, and if we did, it wasn't a problem. If we were going to encounter it, then we would have had to build the spacecraft and the spacesuit to not give humans a problem. You don't just build something and hope it works. You study to see what the threats are, the environment is, and then you say, how thick do I have to make the metal on the spacecraft so that going through this kind of radiation or these kind of meteoroids, it won't get hurt. And then we build it that way.
I help manage the Orion Crew and Service Module office. We're responsible for developing the crew capsule, which is where the crew lives and works when they're in space, and the service module, which is what provides the power and the fuel and the consumables then that is plumbed over to the crew module. We don't have the ultimate answer for radiation on Orion. We're still working on that. If we were to build Orion out of the materials we need and the sole job was to protect for the radiation environment, the vehicle would really be too heavy. So we have to balance the weight of the materials that we put on the spacecraft with how much protection it's providing the crew. So we're really looking at it from an operational perspective. If we understand a radiation event has happened, the crew will actually take shelter in the aft bay of the vehicle. We have found over the years that water is a really great radiation absorbing material. So we could do things like water that's already there in the water bags for drinking and things like that. That water could be used to shield them. As well as we've had some concepts like a water-filled vest that they could put on should they know there's an event and need to be protected.
We don't have a clue when it comes to like how to protect them from like radiation, so we're gonna just like put them up there in like water suits. Yeah, we like water suits, and like we put water all around them, so the radiation could go like into the water, and then they could drink it, and it could be like a Fantastic Four. Everybody they'll come back and be mutants when they get back. But we just got some ideas, yeah. But don't worry about it. Yeah, I know there are refugees everywhere and like people are starving and stuff and like we have homeless all over the place. But if we spend like a few $1 trillion, I think we should be able to figure out how to make water suits for the astronauts in space. And then maybe it'll work out like it did for the guys at Apollo.
The belts are 1,000 miles to 25,000 miles above the Earth.
Then we went right out through them.
No effects on your cells?
We didn't even know it. I don't think anybody, well, maybe somebody said you went through the radiation belt, but we didn't feel it inside, and we didn't get any, added radiation.
Yeah, if you pretend that it's not really there, then you can just go right through it.
To protect the astronauts from the Van Allen radiation belts, the lunar module would have required 6 feet of lead shielding. But here's what they really had for protection.
Obviously, the only shielding they had was the literally paper-thin outer hull of aluminum, and their suits consisting of glass fiber, some aluminum fibers, and silicon rubber.
It's very interesting concerning radiation that the astronauts were protected by a thin film of aluminum when here on Earth they put a lead shield on us when they take a dental X-ray.
In conclusion, when NASA themselves admit to never having left low Earth orbit, and the fact that we don't even have the materials that could withstand the extreme temperatures and cosmic rays in space, how on earth can anyone believe that we ever went to the moon?
Good question. Okay, so if that didn't happen, if Apollo didn't happen, then neither did this picture. The most popular picture probably in the world. That's a significant sphere of influence right there. What's the saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Okay. Well, I mean, we have all of the Apollo missions, so you've got past fool me twice. You know, if it's fool us once, shame on you, fool us twice, shame on us, what happens if we continue to believe pathological liars? Well, we're a bunch of idiots. And they have picture after picture that they pass off as our Earth, the blue marble, right? The 2002 one's the most famous one. Did a show about that. I know a lot of other people in this room did shows on that too, showing the Photoshop replication tool, where the clouds, especially in the so-called southern hemisphere, are all replicated. And then when that picture came out in 2015, they actually said, this is the first picture we've had in, 43 years or something like that? wait, huh? What? And, somebody out there decided to take that picture from 2015 and flip it upside down, and they find out that the clouds spell sex. It just makes me wonder if NASA isn't just a sci-fi wing of Disney. Especially when you go back and you realize just how seriously involved Walt Disney actually was with the space program. Found something else rather interesting when I was looking into all this. Pluto, right? We recently, New Horizons, or whatever they say the probe was that's out there now, took this picture of Pluto, right? I was just doing some random research and discovered that Walt Disney created the dog Pluto the same year the planet Pluto was found, 1930. Probably just a coincidence. Now, he created the dog in 30, and 31, he named the dog, and so the story goes, he named the dog because at the time when they found Pluto, it was big news, everybody was talking about this new discovery, so he named the dog after the planet. Well, isn't it interesting that all these years later, the planet just so happens to have a picture of Pluto on it? Is that just NASA just giving a nod to Walt? I don't know, but I don't believe in coincidences, especially not with these people. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it on your favorite social media sites. There's a lot more to come, so stay tuned and we'll see you back next time.